Hello guys, my name is Alex and welcome back for AOR, this time for the third round in China. And you might be wondering why there's no second round. And that was basically because I was in England for the esports competition, where I had the huge privilege to drive for Williams as a reserve driver, and it was quite a lot of fun to train with the others. And yeah, unfortunately I don't have any recordings from that race, and it also wasn't the best of races because I had to get used to new equipment, a new brake, and I was struggling quite a bit at the beginning. I think I was 6 or 7 tenths off at the beginning, and it took me, I think, the qualifying and half the race to really get used to it, because I just had 50 minutes of practice, so you can imagine, yeah, I was struggling quite a bit. And yeah, here we are for the third round. I did quite a bit of practice here, and my pace seemed to be really strong, because it's actually quite a tricky track in terms of strategy, because there are basically two things you can do. One is to start on the ultras and go to lap 5 or 6 and end the race on mediums, and the second one is starting on softs and finish the race on mediums. Both strategies aren't too different in terms of race time, but you have a lot better track position on the ultras. I did both, but there was no real advantage doing the softs, especially when you're starting in the pack. And so I decided to go for the track position and try to drive as fast as possible on the ultras, but it also meant that I had to make a slight compromise on my setup. I had to use a little bit more of a defensive one, because you have to be very cautious with the temperatures of your tires, especially the rears get really hot. And here we are for my fastest lap. It was actually quite a decent one. I think I could find 1.5 to 2 tenths more in this lap, but otherwise it was quite a solid run. And it was important to get as far up as possible, because the worst thing that can happen on this strategy is when you drop down the order, because when you start in P9 or P10 with these tires, your race is basically over, because the people on softs will try to attack you quite aggressively, and you will lose position after position. So we just try to drive as fast as possible, and so far we are purple in the second sector, and we managed quite a solid run through this corner as well. So it's looking quite great at the moment. And now to the long straight. And yeah, as I said, track position was quite important for me, as well as having good tire wear. It makes quite a huge difference whether you push at the beginning or whether you try to save the tires as well, and we'll see that in just a second. But here we are at the end of the lap. Unfortunately, I was a little bit too cautious in the last corner. I think I lost at least a tenth there, but at the end it was good enough for P3, which I'm really happy about. And I knew my race pace, as always, would be really strong. I trained with Floris and Michael quite a bit, and our pace was pretty similar. But here we are for the race. We have 5 red lights and 5 lights out, and away we go. And unfortunately we got quite a bad start. I wasn't expecting the lights to go out that quickly, and you can see Epic was already alongside, and you can see he pushed us quite wide. I have no clue what he was doing there, because he cost himself a lot of time as well, because you can see we lost quite a bit of time, and he also loses the back end on the curb, which is really unfortunate. Now we try to go around the outside. You can see there's another red arrow which was curly on the inside. He tried to make it 3 wide, which I had no clue what he was doing about. Still yet I don't know. You can see now we are trying to get alongside in the fast right-hander, and you can see we got tagged and lost a few positions up into P9, which is the worst thing that can happen when you're on the ultra soft tires. Now you can see Dominic is on our outside, and we have to leave him the space. And now we're down in P10, and to be honest, this game needs a lot of fixes. One of them being the contact model and the desync problems, but another one is the dirty air. It's a joke because we have no dirty air at all. You can basically dive bomb the car ahead at any point, and since all the cars are very close to each other, it most of the time ends in crashes or contacts, which you will see in this race quite a lot of time. I had to take evasive action multiple times in order to not hit anyone, and you can see as well we're just not losing any time at all. We just go for the move, which also might be part of us having better tires at this point, but yeah, it's just not enough. We are just too close to the car ahead most of the time in corners where you shouldn't overtake, and then you start to overtake in corners where you shouldn't really try a move. And again, you can see there was contact. I left a lot of space, but due to that you sometimes lose a wing, which can destroy your race. And at this point the guys on softs start to attack quite aggressively because they want to get up as far as possible using their softs to good effect, because they know the ultras would drop off quite a bit. And to be honest, I think it's quite unfortunate because a lot of the skill in the last year's game came from the ability to drive close to the car ahead despite the dirty air. But yeah, it is what we have to deal with in this one. It also allows the cars to be closer to each other, which is also not too bad, but it's just getting to a point where it's dangerous to drive with the other cars. Not because of the drivers, but because of the gap the people have to each other on the track. And yeah, it's just really difficult to overtake the others without hitting the car ahead. And you can see just there are so many cars in such a short space, and you can see Dom basically touched the car ahead, which was no surprise because, to be honest, it's just too difficult to not hit the car ahead when they are so close. And at this point I knew he had damage, so I tried to go for a move myself. I knew he was struggling through the corners, especially the fast ones, so what I did, I tried to stay around the outside, use my better grip. There was a slight bit of contact, but I think it was fine. We left him the space, but at this point he has not too much to fight with the lost front wing, and yeah, we were able to get the position. We still left him a little bit of space, as we always do, and yeah, we were able to get at least another position back, but our race is over at this point, because of course at this point I tried to fight as much as possible because I never give up, but yeah, it's just not good. You can see there's another huge dive bomb from Alberto, who lost another position, and it's basically at this point it's a dive bomb compilation from everyone, which is okay in my opinion if there's no contact, but if there are too many contacts it's just not fun to race, because everyone just uses the other car as a block in the corner. And you can see there was a touch again. I'm not sure whether I gave enough space. I tried to, but yeah, my concentration was also on the cars ahead, so yeah, not sure. And again, this time he went defensive, so I tried to go around the outside, but again there was a slight bit of contact. I think that was fine actually. He tried to give me the space, which is fair enough, and because I was able to save my tires a bit, I was able to run much quicker compared to everyone else on Ultras, which was also my plan. I think if I didn't have any collision in the first lap, I think there was a huge chance I could have fight for the win, but yeah, it's just unfortunate. We will see also a replay of this in just a second, just so you can see what was going on, and I will also tell you the position or what happened with Curly. because his move was not intentional. It was just an unfortunate error from the game. And you can see we are breaking quite late. Deagle was, I think, able to get a cutback, which was okay for me, and I gave up this position because at this point there was no point in trying to fight the people on softs because they are much quicker. So my plan was just to stay out these 2 more laps, just to make the one-stop work, because when you're pitting in lap 5 it's quite close with the mediums at the end. So yeah, I just try to survive and make my race as fast as possible by letting the people on softs through, because if I fight them I lose multiple seconds. And here now you will see a replay of the start. You can see Epic was able to get a better start, and what I don't understand is why he went so wide, because look at how wide he was. There was absolutely no point in pushing me that far, because it also loses him quite a bit of time, and now you can see he lost it on the curb. If I would have been closer to him, I would have been in the wall, which is also quite interesting. And here you can see one red arrow and the second one is for me absolutely unnecessary, because in this corner you never ever can make it 3 wide. There's no point in trying it. I don't know why you would try it, because most of the time it ends in crash. And at this point it was actually quite an unfortunate contact, because there was a contact on Curly's car before, which sends him, or which caused him a little bit of oversteer, and he had to correct it, and that hit me somehow. So I don't think it was his fault. I think it was the fault of the game, which, yeah, I cannot understand at all. And in terms of these problems with the contact, with the desync, with the dirty air, you can see it in the esports races as well. It's basically the same thing. Everyone loses front wings due to stupid contacts or stupid moves, and it's not an exception in this race. I've seen a lot of races so far in this game, and it's just too much, to be honest. Here you can see another one. I was quite fortunate that I didn't lose anything off my front wing. Dominic after that also said sorry. I knew it was not his plan to dive bomb me that much, but yeah, it's just unfortunate because we were able to close on our teammate quite a bit, and that cost us, I think, 1 or 2 seconds at least. And I also knew at this point that Dominic was a bit quicker, because I had to make a few compromises on my setup, because I was starting on the Ultras, and I think he was on a slight bit more aggressive one. And I think at this point he also had 6 seconds worth of penalties, so I knew I shouldn't fight him too much, even if he should be quicker. Probably the best thing was to let him through, which you will see in a minute. And you can see the people on the softs went out, of course on much quicker tires. And the plan from here on in was to just stay close to them. And in the race, I think at the end there should also be some rain, so we have to see how that goes. And this time Dominic was very close. I knew he would go for the dive one, so I left him the space, because I knew he had the penalties and there's no point in fighting him. And at this point I decided to save my tires. I gave up a little bit of my speed. You can see they were able to get a gap, and yeah, for me it was just about saving them, because I don't want to have a puncture in the last lap, which really can happen when you start in when you push too much and you pit in lap 5 or 6. Here you can see Flores lost it somehow, so it's not good for him as well. And here you can see it started raining, and you might know my rain pace is really strong, sorry. and at this point I was able to close the gap down to the cars ahead. You could see it was, I think, 3.5 in this one, 3.1 in this lap, and I think we will stay on board for this one, for this lap, and the cars ahead are struggling quite a bit. Might be also due to the more aggressive setup, I'm not sure, or higher tire wear. But we were able to stay calm, adapt really quick to the conditions, and you can just see how much time we're gaining here. And at this point I was not sure what to choose for a strategy, because after this lap it's just 3 more laps, and now is the question, should I stay out for these 3 more or should I pit? And I decided to stay out simply because the other cars came into the pits and we basically didn't have too much to lose. You can see we are still gaining on the cars ahead. We're able to hit the apexes quite well. The turning points, the braking points, the acceleration points were all fine, and we were gaining just seconds on the cars ahead. Imagine if we would have stayed in P3 for this race, how much time we would gain. And yeah, at this point I decided to stay out. You can see the cars are struggling more and more. We are gaining a lot of time now, and you can see the cars ahead went into the pits and we just decided to stay out. Another reason for that was because DRS was still available, so I thought maybe it was the right choice. But as you will see in a second, it's actually raining more and more with every second, and it got worse and worse. The understeer got quite bad, and the oversteer as well. I had to be really cautious on the acceleration and on the brakes. And here we are in the last lap. We already are in P5 because Curly and Ollie were able to overtake me, who both had incredible races despite the contact, but it wasn't on purpose by Curly. I know him quite well, and he's not an aggressive driver or a driver who likes to collide, and it's also not his fault, the contact. I think it was just a game which somehow caused an incident in the fast left-hander, but yeah, I have to move on now. You can see that Deagle went past quite easily. Next is Dominic, so he made the right decision to stay out, and we are just struggling at the moment, just trying to limp home into the finish. And I knew the gap to the cars behind was quite big, and so I wasn't too afraid of losing more positions. It was just a matter of gain P4 or P5 or get P7 in the worst spot. So yeah, it didn't work, the gamble, but I think it's fine to get at least points after this start. It's quite remarkable because normally when you are in P10 or P11 on Ultras, your race is finished. But yeah, I was able to drive cautious and the contacts didn't really interrupt my rhythm. You can see Curly was able to win the race. I think he had a penalty as well, so I think Ollie was the race winner at the end, so congrats to him. He did everything right and he deserved the win. And we got a 3 seconds penalty as well, which is bonkers. But here you can see the final results, a few points more, which is always nice. And that was the race. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next one as well.